Today's episode is brought to you by the Summer Showdown.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, the Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How are you doing?
Oh, great week. We're on week, 87 of quarantine. I have no idea what. I don't know.
Something like that. I mean, we're in stage 2 of reopening now around here in Buffalo, which is nice. Personally, I don't think it's affected either of our situations as far as work. I know my job's still really keeping us at home, and they've started to talk about how they're looking into what would need to change to reopen and who would want to come in and who would want to stay home and things like that. But yeah, at least there's some slightly more things to do if you do decide to get out of the house around here. But
yeah. It's still, it was weird yesterday, actually, because it was like, it was technically still quarantined because there was still there's some events, or not quarantined, curfewed. And I went out for a walk a little bit, probably later than I should, but for the sake of law enforcement listening to this video, I was definitely within the time of curfew. But it was eerily quiet outside, and I'm in the middle of not a big city, but not the smallest, not a rural area at all. So
it's a legitimate city. It's just not one of the smaller major U.S. cities for sure.
Yeah.
Super weird. I know the quarantines have been worse in other areas than here. I think LA had a 1 p.m. quarantine or something like that at one point, I heard. So yeah, we've been lucky in that regard. Outside the original night, the protests and things haven't been too crazy or anything like that around here. So yeah, things are a little more lenient. I actually thought things were blowing up right by me not too long ago because Mercy Flight landed in the Apollo parking lot next door to me.
Really?
And it was very, very loud in here when it was happening, to the point where I'm going outside, and given everything going on, you hear helicopters overhead and that close, you don't go to, oh, there's a bad car accident nearby or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is almost certainly what it was. But yeah, it gave me a little bit of a worry that there was a big protest march coming down my street and
which would have been weird considering where you are.
Yeah, it's not a street that would get that kind of traffic, but still where my head went yesterday when they were landed and taken off. It was crazy. But
yeah. But I think we're here to talk about Overwatch.
I guess we can get back to Overwatch. That's fine too. But yeah.
Yes, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping, of course. Blackwatch Report getting in with they're getting into their hundreds now. I think 102 or 103 now.
So old.
I know. Our child is old, so we're gonna have to wait until they have their spinoff or their child show, and then we'll have a podcast grandchild. I don't know what it would be about. I don't know.
We'll come up with a clever term for it when it
happens. Whenever Ty starts his show, that'll be our grandchild show. That'll be the day. We'll be podcast grandparents. But yeah, so make sure you're checking them out. Blackwatch Report on their own podcast feed, as well as on Twitter, Blackwatch Report. Of course, huge shout outs to our executive producer, Bungee Bamboo, who, of course, supported us over at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast, as our executive producer really does help, and you can help us out there as well if you'd like to. But the best way, at least right now, to support us is, of course, leaving reviews on iTunes, but also going to discord.me/High Noon Podcast. It's where the community lives and where you can find everything that's going on about the show.
Where I forgot to announce that we're live.
Oh, that's right. You see, under normal circumstances, you can be notified when we go live over at twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast on Mondays. That's only if we remember to do it, which I'm man.
I feel like we took a week off, and the only reason I feel that way is because the schedule came out around an hour after we decided, like, well, without a schedule,
Right.
we'll have to try to do it later in the week or
Yeah.
something. So, like, I would mentally was like,
Same.
okay, no show today,
Same.
like kind of readjusting my plans, and then it dropped, and I didn't have anything set, and we were just like, all right, we'll do it. Great. We always want to keep the main day and the main time.
Right.
But yeah, it's completely thrown off. I don't know if I felt flat in the open, but I'm starting to get a little bit into the mood. I'm getting pumped. I'm gonna be ready to complain about some stuff soon. But big block of news here since
we do have a big block of news, and this isn't going to make any difference for the listeners, but it's going to make a big difference for Deathblow as we jump into news. Because Deathblow is able to hear that drop.
Guys, I hear stuff. It's great. It's great. It's like episode 12 stuff done 200 episodes too late, where now I can finally hear some drops.
Yep, I finally did the roughly 4 minutes of work it takes for me to set it up.
Can you shame battle yourself for taking so long?
Shame.
See,
don't beat yourself up too bad. I just can hear it and then jump in immediately as soon as it ends, as it's intended. It's great. I love it.
The listeners may take this for granted, but you are very good at mentally timing that. And we also have built a rapport over 212 episodes of knowing when to cue each other when something's over. So
there's a trust and an understanding on my end where okay, if I say something, I can get him to think I should play a drop now, and then I can kind of half see you go to reach for it, and then and timing it out it's tough. It's not been perfect.
But
so
if you've ever thought that Deathblow could hear the drops before, he could not. And
if you're why is he talking while he's playing sound? Because he doesn't know. Because he didn't know.
That's true.
But that's the thing of the past now, thankfully.
At least for this episode.
And only some of the drops too, but we're making progress.
We're making at least a small amount of progress. But we can start with a piece of news that hits close to home for us for a couple of reasons. This is like a twofer. The first part is that Toronto has signed a new player. The second part is that player is none other than Numlocked, aka Milton. We got Milton.
I believe you stole my scrim block.
Yes. I was promised that I could play with Tier 4. If I joined the team, I would be able to play with Tier 4, and I haven't been able to play with Tier 4 yet. I was told that I would be his scrim partner, and hang on.
I'm very, very happy for that particular meme back. If
too.
You're not familiar with it, it was born by a sleepy drive to PAX East, I want to say.
I think it was the first. Yeah, it was PAX East.
Yeah, I think it was the two of us just memeing and riffing and writing a whole Overwatch League Office Space skit in the car. I had a notebook out. I took notes. We were casting players into roles in the show and everything. And in typical High Noon fashion, nothing came of our meme idea, but some jokes on the show, and that was, in this case at least, was more than worth it.
Yeah, paid off.
Finally
paid off.
Get it back. It's just all that work paying off. Really pumped. I wish I could. I'm gonna go on a mission and try to find those notes though, because I want to see what the rest of our cast was and who's still around to hold
right.
those.
We did have a lot of players cast. Yeah, I don't remember even a single other one. I don't think, except maybe I think Brennan's Sideshow might have been in it in some capacity.
All I know is we nailed Milton, and he's the one that's still around. So that's good.
Yeah, and is now back as a player and not as a coach, which was rumored for Toronto. So, Death, I know.
A really great signing. I do like this a lot. You have a team like Toronto that seems to have more talent than they're able to show on stage, right? And in terms of results. And, I guess you do really need to factor Surefour as actually on the team when you kind of do that evaluation, but he's never on the stage. So this won't exactly fix that problem. But, we talked going into the season, Beast was a very unproven main tank prospect with a possibly Winston only hero pool kind of a situation. And that was the one area where we really weren't super comfortable. comfortable. And not that there was a problem with Beast as a signing or a prospect. I kind of liked it. But you need something safer kind of to go with him, or something that complements his hero pool, somebody a little more versed in the Rhine v. Rhine matchups and, you know, the other main tank spots. Numlock is an absolute, is as Overwatch veteran as it gets, right? He's been since the Alienware monthly melees with Hex and ZP and you know, ZP doing the whole one-man show thing, all that stuff. He's been around forever. He's the 3G Express, I think, right? Because he was been around so long that was as good as the internet quality got on your phone. That was 4G Express, I think, to be honest. But he's been casting tournaments on mobile data, not casting, but playing in tournaments using mobile data and stuff in the past. He's been around so long. So great to see him back in the league. Definitely somebody that never got a realistic opportunity to show anything with his time in the league. That's where the meme came from, where, you know, it's just Milton trying to get his spot on the stage, and he played like one map or one match or something with them at the very end of the first season. Something and it was just in a situation where no matter how good you looked, you weren't going to look good. No matter how bad you looked, you weren't going to have an opportunity to shine. It was a rough spot. So great to see him get a chance to hopefully come in and play some meaningful reps, get on the stage, show what he can do, and you know, if they use him as a player coach kind of a situation, you know, like the veteran QB that comes in to teach the young guy Beast or something like that. You know, it can only be a beneficial relationship, I think, for Beast as well, to have him around and take some of the pressure off. So great signing from Toronto, if not super splashy, but they don't all have to be, right? I really like this move.
You need the role players at some point, right? Like, and like you said, and we've seen this on a lot of teams, the roster is not lacking talent in terms of, like, you know, if it were like Madden scores, like there's some good numbers there, right? Like there's some good talent numbers there, but like it's not just the talent on the paper that matters. In fact, that matters. What, you know, there's obviously a certain threshold, but I think it matters way less than I think a lot of people have predicted in the past, and even we've talked about. It's like team synergy, chemistry. Are they a coachable player? I mean, all these things that are, you know, you take for granted when you're in traditional sports. It's like, yeah, you can have like the talent there. You can have a player who's really talented, but are they coachable? Do they get along with the team? You know, are they a Terrell Owens type of player where it's like, yeah, they're an amazing talent, but they're, you know, a horrible media presence, and they're, you know, a distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something a lot of sports teams don't want to go for, and for a variety of reasons, which are sometimes controversial and sometimes aren't, and are really apparent in the case of T.O. And you know, this is a player you definitely, I don't think, need to worry about anything like that. He just wouldn't have lasted this long without a single comment from a teammate, or, you know what I mean? Like every word you hear about him is about is all positive, you know, about how beneficial he is to have around. And I want to point out here too, I don't think we can call it a coincidence. I think it's officially a trend and something to keep in mind going forward when you look at what Toronto might do with roster spots. They like to go to the old guard. And call up people that maybe never got a shot, looking at Mangachu, looking at Gods. You know, now we've got Numlocked, and it just seems to be a bit of, not that they're afraid to go sign new players, but there's more of a willingness to look at well-known options that have been overlooked by multiple other people, in order to bring them in and give them a shot. And I think that's great to see. And I'm really hoping it does pay off for them. You know, it's not been, I don't think, a detriment. None of the players I mentioned really flailed out, right? Gods looked good when he got the opportunity to play. He just didn't have really a solid main tank with him, I didn't think, at the time. And Mangachu at bare minimum was gold for the Torb 1v1s and stuff like that. And so it is what it is. They're not gonna likely pop off and become top players in the league, but you don't necessarily need them to be either. So it's just something to keep in mind going forward when we try to connect dots and who's gonna go where. Toronto might be a team that goes and gets somebody who's been around contenders longer than most.
Yeah, and I think Toronto, they start doing this, they're building up, the core of their team. Is it a bunch of old guard guys that have been around forever? They know what the competitive scene is like, and like you have this core. What might not be they're not a number one team in the league. Signing Numlock isn't going to shoot them up. A huge. They're not going to go up a tier. From bottom to even to middle. I don't think because of the signing. But if you can get a core of a team, and this is sort of the message that I've been saying for the whole season is like some of the teams, take LA Valiant for example. They didn't build their team this year to win this year. They are building a team to have a core and get a core of a team and build on that for years to come. This seems sort of like what Toronto is doing. And like, yes, you could bring in a top talent, like really raw, undeveloped player right now, but do you want to bring that player in to an undeveloped, not community, culture, team culture? Like you got to develop that and get that solidified. Obviously now is because of the pandemic is not a good time to do any of that. But you start with someone who knows what they're doing, who's played online tournaments. I mean, like you said, been playing since the old days when there were only online tournaments. So that's something, that's not something to disregard at all. So long story short,
knows how to play on mobile data. It's not overstep. That's consistency. That's availability. Like the man will be there if needed. That's or something, right? No, but I mean, all jokes aside, it's maybe not the most head turning of a signing, but I think it's one that this team needed and can hopefully. You said it might not tier jump them, but I think you combine it with Surefour actually. Playing again, considering he's your star and your X factor, and we might get that middle of the pack team that we kind of thought they would be. I really think they are just kind of a bit of a hard carry away. You just need somebody in those moments when the team doesn't absolutely pop off to be able to save a couple of team fights here and there, and Surefour is definitely somebody that can do that. So something to keep an eye out for. But it's not all additions here for Toronto.
Yes. Jay has left the Toronto Defiant and has decided to retire from esports. So, of course, Jay was the GM for Toronto. I didn't read the whole statement from him, but Death, do you have any thoughts on Jay leaving? What do you think about this?
Well, Jay and in combination with the Bishop as the head coach at the start of the year was some of the things we were most excited about for Toronto. So it is a little rough to see them go, but much like with Washington, and I don't know that we talked about this too much because it happened like as we were kind of on a break for the holiday, I believe, if I'm remembering the timing on how all that worked out. But much like with Washington, I mean, when your team for 2 years in a row underperforms and isn't doing well, you can't be upset when the general manager goes, when some of the coaching staff clears out, and you need a bit of a reset. You're trying to find and build that culture you were talking about, and that is a top-down thing. It's funny, a lot of people roll their eyes at stuff like that, and I think a lot of people that do that didn't play in competitive sports. I came from a football team that was habitually and regularly bad. It was in the locker room. It was talked about amongst the team and the players, and it has to come from up above, and it also has to come from results. You don't completely shake it just because you get some no-nonsense guys that talk a good game coming in. They have to do that as well as provide the wins to really flip things around, and you've got to make people really believe things are different. go watch the Buffalo Bills 3 years ago before Sean McDermott showed up, and then listen to how they're talked about now. It's completely different, and it starts with that attitude, that culture in the locker room, the mentality of the players, and I hope this opens the door for Toronto to bring in somebody that can really do that and bring that to the table, because I do think it's sorely needed. And I think, a player like Numlock can really feed into that a little bit. The old vet, the old guard, kind of coming in, and Numlock's been on a lot of really bad teams. He's been on a couple of really good teams and contenders too, and he knows what it takes to kind of make that transition and that switch. And so yeah, we'll see who they hire. I mean, I can't sit here and say it's great because I don't know who's going to take the mantle. Right. But on its surface, I'm not upset to see the GM of a team that I, have been disappointed in the performance of for almost 2 full seasons now. You can't be too upset to see them go. So
yeah, I just quickly read over Jay's statement as well. So it looks like it was mostly just not necessarily burnout. Well, a little bit of burnout, and just like you said, it's tough when you're in a position and you don't do well, and a lot of that, I mean, I think rightly so in some cases, like, goes back on the GM or the coaching staff or the upper levels. And like, if you don't want to do it, that's great, or that's fine. I think that, it seemed, at least from the statement, that it was mutual. So, from Toronto's perspective, like, hey, you have a GM who's underperformed, and maybe it was a little bit of a nudge out the door, not necessarily a hey, he just wanted to go. But it seemed.
If I had to guess in this situation, I think usually what happens is the team says, hey, we've made the decision. We're going to move on from you as in this position. Are you sticking around, or you know what I mean? And he probably, from that decision, made the decision to retire from esports rather than get back on the grind and try to find a new home and things like that. But and that's all just hearsay because of transparency problems that have been discussed ad nauseum on the show. Yeah,
but I think, again, we're at the point with Toronto where, at least in terms of performance, can't really get too much worse than they've been doing. I mean, you could, but it's not very far.
It's not realistic to think they're gonna get worse than that. So.
Right. So bring in some new blood and maybe shake things up. So I think, I don't really have anything particularly specifically negative to say about Jay at all. So, in that regard, maybe it's sad, but I think it was mutual, and it seemed to be on good terms. So all positive there. All right, moving on. Hangzhou Spark has added Hajian to the coaching staff. I know exactly 0 things about this person.
Formerly with Vancouver, so this is some of their old staff kind of being reincorporated back into the league. Was also with Fusion University for some of their runs. So he's a South Korean coach. If you weren't aware, I mean, I think saying he was with Vancouver kind of answers that for the most part. But so is Harsha, so maybe not. But yeah, I think this is a solid addition. I mean, he's clearly we've been around the game a long time, been a part of some successful organizations, and Hangzhou's in a position to level up here after the Architect acquisition. Yeah. And I think some fresh blood in the coaching staff can't hurt either, because they've been, at least for me, a solid underperformer across the season so far. So
I'm still very excited to see teams valuing coaching staff as much as they are here. Like, I think, it's underappreciated from the community of, like, a team is underperforming. Oh, well, let's just change the main tank, or let's change this player. It's like, yeah, that can help, but as we said, a lot of these teams are like overstacked in talent. You need to refine that in some way. So really glad to see a team opting for more coaching staff there. But the opposite of that is happening for the Washington Justice, as John Galt has been released by them.
Yeah, definitely. I want to say his I almost don't like the wording from the announcement. So the announcement reads, today we say thank you and goodbye to John Galt as he steps away from the justice to further his education. So I saw some people kind of how this was really pointing towards them like trying to move in a full Korean direction. And I don't disagree that that's likely what they're trying to do. But I don't think that this was why he left, right? I think they might have known he was kind of running out the year. I really don't know. It's impossible to say. So we're just kind of guessing at it. But it's worded as though he stepped away because he wants to get his college career started, and I think that's an admirable pursuit. So it's a team that was probably going to be moving on from him at the end of the year anyways, because you typically do that when you have a regime change, and that's clearly what's going on there. So we'll have to see who fills that head coach position for the meantime.
Yeah. All I have to say is who? No one's gonna get. No one ever gets that joke.
I don't.
That's fine. It's what we call highbrow humor. But speaking of the Washington Justice, Elevote has also mutually parted ways with the Washington Justice. Anything additional to add here with Elevote?
They made the I'm blank. Janu was the other one they brought in. So him and Stitch, I believe, were extended to be long-term contracts.
Okay.
Elevote and Losish Elevote came in and played decently for them early on in the year. I did think he dropped off a bit once he maybe had some tape out there on him and people were able to study what he was doing, his positions, things like that. I don't know what exactly to attribute the drop off in performance to. It could have just been a team situation, as is often the case with main tanks and tank lines and things. I think they tend to go look pretty bad when the rest of their team's pretty bad behind them. So, I don't want to sit here and say he was a problem or needed to go, but he was brought in as part of a tank duo, and the other half of the tank duo has yet to step foot on American soil to join this team. Has yet to play even a little bit. He was on this roster last year. This is Losish, so I fully expect Losish to be next and make his way out as well. Again, this is probably a team that will end up with a full Korean roster by the 2021 season start. But for the time being, I think this is a player whose spot on the starting roster was already lost. So I don't think it makes a huge difference to them going forward. I don't think it was going to be Janu on the stage basically the whole time. Yeah,
just seems like sort of a placeholder. Didn't the stars didn't align for them, and
maybe it would have been different had Losish been able to get there, because Elevote and Losish have been together forever as a duo. And it would have been nice to see them get their shot, but I don't even know that it was anybody's fault. I just don't think the guy could get a visa and get to the States.
Yeah, it's so weird how
perplexing. One works. Player has that kind of a problem. I really don't know, but there's just no point in speculating because it could be literally anything.
Yep. All right, let's move on and talk about a big one here for NYXL as they picked up Hacksaw.
Yes.
So yet another DPS player coming to NYXL. I know I've got my thoughts on it, Death, but I'm interested to hear what you think.
Well, there's some patch notes and some experimental mode changes that might make Genji viable. So all the changing that's going on with hero pools, which we'll be talking about soon, maybe they're going to change hero limits as well, and we're going to go back to anything goes. And then you could just get Who Are You and Hacksaw double Genjiing it up with double Zenyatta orbs and double Winston main tanks.
Can't
and we
wait.
can just go back to the Zenji meta.
Hey, we have been long time. Well, that was also before Zenyatta's orbs went away too. So it was actually super broken. And I think Symmetra was part of that old Symmetra where you'd give shields too. So it was like
that was one of the iterations of it for sure before it really solidified. Twinston Tusio trade is really.
We were original advocators against hero limits. So I personally have gotten with the times, but at my core, I say let them have their multiple.
Yeah, we've both gotten with the times, but that was before we had the opportunity to see a Who Are You and Hacksaw double Genji comp, and I'm here for it. I want to see it. Let's go. in all seriousness, this is obviously a big deal. We talked, I think, last episode about what New York can potentially do to level up. And there's two things that are happening here. There's the signing of Hacksaw, and then there's a main support player named Mandu who has come of age and is now 18 years old and will be able to play for the NYXL. So I don't think anybody's doubting or wondering how Hacksaw fits into a team. I think you just play him and let him figure it out from there. He does seem to be there. So I do expect him to be there. Probably a brutal blow for Libero's fantasy Overwatch League value. If I had to guess, it's going to be rough for him to find the stage. I can absolutely see compositions where you do get Who Are You in there, you know, like Genji, Doomfist. I'm blanking a little bit on Hacksaw's hero pool. I know the
like
timing
Genji,
with
Pharah, Doomfist, May.
Yeah, I thought Doomfist was in it, but I just wasn't 100% sure. So maybe we get to the point where we've got like Doomfist Genji dive compositions and you end up using them both. Far from eliminating that from the possibility. Again, there are actual patch notes out there that have significant Genji buffs to them. They get to deflect for longer, manually turn off deflect, and then just like the numbers are boosted on just damage output and things like that. So it's very reasonable we get some actual Genji play in Overwatch League before the end of the year. So a very interesting signing here. I think I completely forgot about Mandu, if I'm being honest, when we were having a conversation last week. There's another player who is now eligible age-wise to play that just completely dominated my attention. We'll talk about him when we preview their match coming up. But I think, the main support is a position that can really change the way a team operates. It can change the pace with which they play. They've been trying to be a little more aggressive, I think, in their play style, and maybe transitioning away from Animo is the way to go. I'm very curious to see what NYXL does with the main support position. And then now, Nene's back as well, I think, in Korea.
He was at least on his way back.
Yeah, I thought that was a picture of him in a Korean airport, but it could have just been like a Korean Airlines or something gate on an American airport. I really don't know. But either way, probably won't see play right away because he'll likely need to quarantine. Although there's some talk that maybe that's as things get better over there, and Korea handled the whole virus better than the entire rest of the world did to begin with. So they're farther ahead
of the meta in all aspects.
In all ways. Absolutely. So it might not be a delay to getting Nene back incorporated, but a lot of questions with NYXL, and I think a lot of disappointed people if Hacksaw's not immediately in the starting lineup, if I'm being honest. So we'll see where they go from here. What are you hoping for, out of curiosity?
Give me the new regime. Give me Hacksaw. Give me Who Are You, or Hacksaw plus SBB. I'm fine with that. I think Libero. You've done your time. You've filled your spot. Be a leader for the team and the community of the team, and fill in the weird spots where maybe you're needed. But
he seems like the perfect reservist DPS for the team, but not a starter maybe anymore.
Be the utility player. Be the hey. I don't want to see the SBB Libero looks like. You're running the two 35-year-olds in hockey or something. It's like they're there. They were once glorious, but they are the young guys are beating up on them. It feels like that. Also, Hacksaw, having played on the Titans, has been on another team that has had success in Overwatch League. More success in terms of playoff success than NYXL. So there's not even and again, this is all just hearsay, and I'm assuming things or extrapolating things, but if you're coming from most other teams or contenders or something, you're going to be, intimidated potentially by NYXL and what they've accomplished and how they've been so good. But if you're coming from a team that has been as good or arguably better than NYXL, coming into NYXL, you can have Like the things you say and contribute to that conversation and the mindset of the team have weight behind them. If you're, even a contender's champion coming in and you're saying this, that, or the other about how to play or how to think about a certain situation, like it's like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like you haven't been here. This is the league, by the way. I don't care what you did in contenders,
Gotta earn it.
You gotta earn it. And I think a player like Hacksaw, I'm trying to think, there really hasn't been, as far as I can remember, there haven't been any, with the exception of Hotba, but he was never on a team that was anywhere near as good as NYXL. I guess Philly close, but even so, was never a contender, like a real player for that team. There hasn't been, the additions from NYXL have been from outside of the league. So I think this could really potentially shake up what NYXL is doing. Not only because he's a great player, but also just because of that fact as well. So I'm very excited about Hacksaw. But knowing my luck, he'll be the new Pine, and we'll never see him. I don't even want to think. I don't even want to think about that. Let's go on to some. I think that the Hacksaw signing is good news. The thought of NYXL squandering that signing is what is making me sad. But let's talk about some good news for the Dallas Fuel fans out there, as Zachary has retired from Overwatch.
Oof. Firing shots.
Well.
Fair shots. I will say.
Lined up very easily.
Yeah, Zach, they needed his roster spot, basically. I think is about the size of it, and he wasn't gonna be on the stage anymore. And I don't know what his plans are going forward, but he's going to be stepping away from Overwatch is what he announced he's retiring from. So I don't expect him to go back down to contenders or anything like that. And probably for the best. I mean, there was clearly something there. He had a lot of success on Fusion University when he was there. He was just, to me, like mismanaged as a prospect across the board, from being used in a situation that made him look really, really bad at the World Cup to then his head coach in the World Cup, like scrambling to make up for the damage that he just did to this guy's prospects, to joining Overwatch League, bringing him in, and then to using him right away when he wasn't ready. He was a solid Brig player. I think he proved that in his time in Dallas. But he was signed as a DPS. You don't need your DPS players to be able to play Brig anymore. So that kind of value's non-existent, and we're watching Decay and Doha just pop off and carry the team and really erase a lot of mistakes. There's a 0% chance they're coming out. You remember the story about AKM's final season, and it was going to be his chance for redemption? Yeah. What are you still doing there, bud? Like, come on. I mean,
I was kind of wondering the same thing.
Other than just kind of like making them pay you since they signed you to the contract, which is fair.
I would do that. I definitely wouldn't do that if a team wants to sign me for a full year contract. We can just see how that pans out.
Just unless it's Florida, they'll cut you in a day. Less than a day, in an hour.
I'll have a better lawyer than Sideshow. Ryan Morrison, please represent me.
But yeah, I mean, this is, we don't want to harp on it. He's on his way out. It's a situation where I think there's clearly a lot of talent there. And I think a new game might be a really good look for Zach. And maybe he finds one that he can actually pop off in and really, lead the charge in. He was a great prospect. Yeah, like I said, great prospect that I just don't think was ever handled right. And he was never really given the best opportunity to make the most out of his chance in Overwatch League. He needed a little more time in contenders, and then maybe he needed some time on the bench and somebody to learn from. And they needed to use him like KSF got used by the Valiant, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think that might have been a lot better of a transition.
But another player, and this will be the last bit of news here, another player has joined the Dallas Fuel, and that's Paintbrush, who's been traded from the LA Gladiators.
Yeah, not a player the Gladiators were going to use. I think they did use him once, and that was, didn't have the best showing, but just kind of throwing a player in and his, with the entire rest of the roster being there and things like that isn't the best look. So, listen, Dallas's support line is probably their biggest weakness. at the moment. Closer never really looked as good here as he did on London at times, and even there he was solid, but I don't think he's ever been a standout, main support.
Yep.
So another option to go to, somebody to try to give them a little more stability back there, could be really, really big for them. He's very unknown because he's only had one match or 2 maps even maybe, or something like that, worth of playtime. Hopefully with a new home with some time to integrate. Again, maybe don't use him immediately out of the gate when you get him here, so that you don't kind of spoil your fans on him and make them dislike him because of a rough opening or something like that. I don't really know. But I wouldn't wait too long either, because it really has been an issue for this roster, how the back line has performed. So hopefully he can give them some stability there, and you don't have to do much to allow Decay and Doha to win you matches. So just give them a little more support, a little more reliability around them, and it could pay dividends. We'll see though.
Yeah, could be some pretty exciting times for the Dallas Fuel. I'm sure Bob is jumping for joy. But let's move on here, and we've got some things to talk about with the upcoming format changes.
It's tournament talk.
I feel like you probably forgot what a lot of these drops actually sound like. So I'm going to read. We've got a big new format, some changes, and just some clarifications here. So I'm going to read through these quickly, and then we'll discuss them. So the format for the rest of the regular season has been announced. The most important details include a new event that is called the Summer Showdown, where we'll have 3 weeks of seeding matches followed by a tournament. Seeding brackets are going to be handled in the same way as the May Melee, with the higher seeds being able to pick their opponents up until the semifinals, where things become predetermined. Hero pools have been changed, with the first 2 weeks of seeding having the same hero pool as the last week, and the last week of seeding and the tournament will have no hero pools. So 2 weeks of hero pools, which we'll talk about in a second, and then the last week of seeding plus the tournament itself, no hero pools. After the Summer Showdown, there will be another tournament following the same format, and details will be announced later. After these 2 tournaments, it will be 2 weeks of balancing matches, with the goals to have teams to get all teams to have 21 regular season matches, not including tournament matches. There will be 1 hero pool over these 2 weeks. Initial hero pool will be Echo, Sombra, Diva, and Brigitte band. Deadlines for trades and free agent signings have been extended from June 15th to July 31st. And then there's some links for some more details. But a lot to sort of encapsulate there, Death. So we got the confirmation that we're going to be doing tournament formats for the foreseeable, rest of the season. Yeah.
There's a lot here. And I guess my big takeaway is that it all feels very disjointed and weird. There's things I really like about these changes, and there's things I dislike about these changes. And we already know my take on the tournament, so I'm going to skip over the fact that they're definitely doing them, because we already kind of knew that, right?
Yep.
So let's just look at the schedule of it, right? With 2-week hero pools, I'm all for this. I think a little more time to let a meta mature and develop can lead to some better gameplay, and I'm all for that. I think hero pools have been a massive success in what they've been able to do for just the excitement of watching things. Sorry, coaches, I don't care that your job got harder. I never will. I know it's not meant to be an easy job. You're just meant to go out there and win. So just go win, forehead. It really is that simple. But I think this will help them a little bit, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not opposed to giving them a little bit of an ability to do their jobs better. In fact, we've advocated for ways to help them be more impactful, not less impactful. So if this can do that, great. And all things considered, there's some concerns about 2-week hero pools, and that's is everybody going to play the same number of matches within those games, right? you don't have a match at all in the first week of the hero pool, then you theoretically get a big advantage where you get to learn from what happened there.
True.
So I'd like to see with them is some balance and say, okay, every team plays twice in those 2 weeks, or maybe one division plays both weeks and the other one only plays one of them. I don't know exactly how you handle it, but I do think that's a concern, and a valid one, not a deal breaker by any means. That means you can't do it, but just part of the equation and how you have to judge its effectiveness. But where I think this really falls short is we're doing 2-week hero pools with 3 weeks of seeding matches going into a tournament. Why aren't all the qualifiers under a hero pool? Why aren't you doing 4 weeks of qualifiers, 2 different hero pools, and then you go into the tournament without hero pools? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Some people have said, well, now you get a week of practice on the hero pool list, or the no bans hero pool that the tournament will be on. But like, isn't that the point of the tournament, that it's like kind of a one-off thing? And why does it need to be connected randomly in meta and hero pool to this 3rd week of that? It just doesn't fit. This whole, but to be honest, the whole tournament structure just doesn't fit, because it's a sports league, right? It's an esports league. It's not just an esports scene that you're following where there's a tournament this weekend or this month and then one this month, and it's just doesn't, none of it lines up. So now it feels like we're shoehorning tournaments into a regular season of a league, and then on top of that, we're shoehorning 2-week hero pools into a 3-week structure of event. And honestly, I don't think it's going to give it much of a chance to feel like a positive change. I think it's going to sour people on the idea of 2-week hero pools, because it's going to feel sloppy. It's going to feel awkward. They're not going to be wrong. And when they watch it and feel that, if that's the case, maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe it works out. I don't know. It might be very much so up to the broadcast to sell it to the viewer in the moment. And make it feel organic, but just planning it and then looking at it, it certainly looks far from organic or like it makes much sense. It doesn't have to be this way. Like, you could just do the extra week of qualifying matches and it would make a whole lot more sense, and it makes the actual tournament a lot less interesting and exciting and hype for me. Even though I have my own issues with them, there'd be something to going into it without a hero pool, not knowing exactly what was going to be played. And now I feel like, oh, well, there's going to be like a 1 or 2 character difference in how the teams approach, because we just watched it last weekend, right? Like, so it's less interesting, it's less exciting. And I don't know. So to me, it just makes the tournament idea worse. It makes the hero pool idea look worse, and it just looks like Blizzard is a little lost at the moment in how to structure these things. And I guess maybe that's good for us in the long term, since we don't want to see these tournaments come back next year. But we'll have to wait and see exactly how it plays out. I'm very skeptical about this, and I'm upset that this is how we're going to see the 2-week hero pools. So I do encourage everybody to look at the first 2 weeks coming up of matches as its own isolated thing, right? Like, how did that 2 weeks feel? How did it feel at the end of 2 weeks? Ignore the fact that the tournament's coming up, because I think multiple weeks or longer hero pools is a great thing to try. And something that could very, very possibly be a positive adaptation to a system that I've really enjoyed. But we'll have to see, because it is just going to be a little weird. How it all works out and incorporates.
A lot of this to me feels like it was, okay, we need to have, the number they're saying is 21 regular season matches. We need to have 21 regular season matches played, or that's the number we want to have each team have played, 21 regular season matches. So we have this amount of time left in whatever bracket that they're going to, probably based on, I'm going a little bit outside of the game here. Actually, I'm going very much outside of the game here. There's probably a certain deadline that they need to have, playoffs either started or kicking off into a grand finals of some sort, based on, ad deals that they sold. They could, without looking at a calendar and doing the math, my guess is that this is the best way. If there's a couple of things that are set in stone, the number of matches that each team is supposed to play is something that they can't change, if we're assuming that. It's 21 or whatever for regular season matches. And also, they want to have these tournaments for whatever reason. They want to have these tournaments. It's like, okay, how can we get the most out of these tournaments, given that we only want to have this many regular season games, and then also the 2-week hero pool. So if it breaks down to, okay, we're going to have 3 tournaments or whatever from now until the end of the season, we're going to have 21 matches, which means we're going to have this weird week where like Vancouver plays like 100 times or whatever. I don't know how they're going to do it.
So I think I can kind of add to that a little bit. I think the 28 was the original number of games to play in a season. So I think they've already changed that.
Sure.
And brought that down to account for the lost time.
Right.
And I'm guessing they want 4 games played in qualifiers going into each tournament for every single team. And that takes the 2 teams that have played the most, which I think is Philly and Houston. I could be wrong on that. They probably added 8 games to what they've already played, and that number's 21.
Right.
And that the rest, they need to keep it as low as possible because you've got teams like Vancouver that have played like 6 times, who are going to be playing a ton in those balancing matches or whatever at the end of the 2 tournaments. And you're also going to see them play extra times coming up, right? At the end of what's announced, there's like a match on the schedule for Vancouver where it won't count towards their qualifications, but it will count towards their opponent's qualification matches.
Right.
So they're going to be putting in some extra matches already before those balancing weeks.
I was wondering how because like Vancouver can't play themselves, right? If they're the only team that's at 6, you're going to be adding something to someone else, right? Okay.
Yeah. So there's like 1 extra Vancouver match involved in this tournament's setups. It'll be at the very end, and they'll probably mention it on the broadcast, but won't really change much. I don't think Vancouver is going to be a high seed or in contention for it.
Right.
But their opponent, Atlanta, in that match will be potentially. So could be impactful in that regards. But either way, they're all regular season matches, so the teams will be up for them and doing what they need to do. So not a big deal there. But yeah, I did think I had a little bit of insight into how those numbers came to be, or at least the solid at it. So I want to share.
Yeah, so given all that, let's just assume, if we assume that the scheduling math and the things that are constant are there, this kind of makes sense. Like, if they want to try 2-week hero limits, like, I guess just do it. Like, they could have the 3rd week and just have all the qualifier matches be on that. But I don't know. I guess it's just a choice to
Couldn't they have just? So to me, if you want to, like, the better way to shoehorn it is you're adding 2 weeks of non-qualifier matches. Why couldn't they be after the 3rd week of qualifiers, before the actual tournament takes place, right? And then just balancing week, it's schedule balancing week, right? It's always going to be weird with everything that's happened with COVID-19. Everybody knows that going into it.
Yeah.
So then you could have like your hero pool there. The second hero pool could be the 3rd week of qualifiers, and then you're balancing matches for the week. And it just feels a whole lot better to have it be there. And then, I don't know. It's just awkward.
Yeah, it is. It was going to be awkward regardless, I guess.
It was.
This is an all right way to do it.
It's not the worst. It could be great. It could not have an impact, but I think it's just going to make hero pools look bad, and make 2-week hero pools look bad. Like, it just won't make sense. It doesn't work when they could have just had an even number of weeks. Like, why are you trying to make a 2-week thing happen when you've got a set of 3-week schedules? Like, basic division and multiplication and just some very elementary math tells you that there's going to be some awkwardness to this that was very avoidable.
True. I don't disagree there. Okay, but in terms of the hero pool itself, with Echo, Sombra, Diva, Brigitte, Band, what are you thinking at a high level for these first 2 weeks?
I think you're going to see a lot of what you saw in the May Melee for the first 2 weeks without the Florida composition of Brig Tracer, really mixing things up. I think Dive's going to be exceedingly difficult to pull off without Echo and without Diva and without Sombra, who are 3 very important pieces to Dive, also Brig. So this tells me we're looking at double shield May compositions for 2 weeks, which is, to me, that's the hero pool list meta. So I don't like this particular draw.
Right.
well. It's the downside of the 2-week hero pools is when you get one that's maybe less exciting or less great. But my big issue with it is, again, it feels like we're going to get maybe, see, it's hard to say, right? Because either we're restricting the best composition and we're stopping the Brig Tracer stuff, or we're, I don't know. We need more of the no hero pool meta to flesh out, I think, to really know what kind of impact this will have and what would be traditionally meta.
Right.
For now, I think what we had before and considered traditionally meta before the May Melee will dominate here. We're going to see a lot of Rhine Sigma, maybe some Orisa, a lot of double shield, let's just say, however they work that out, the available tank options. I think it's almost more interesting to look at how it impacts specific teams. The Soul Dynasty don't want to play the Diva; they want to play the Rhine Sigma. So green light, go for it. You're well set up for that now. Florida is everybody's favorite team at the moment. You know, they're the new hotness. They're the ones shooting up the power rankings. Chris can't play Brig. And without Brig, that means Yaki can't play the Tracer, at least without the same effectiveness, the same interaction that made it so powerful before. So I think it's a pretty big hit to Florida, and we're going to learn whether or not this was, they found a hero pool that suited them versus they are actually significantly better and performing a lot better. And a lot of it will revolve around Chris's ability to go back to Lucio or to go to Baptiste or something and perform at a level we've not seen him perform at outside of the Brig play. So those are the two teams that I think are the most heavily impacted by it. I'm a little curious and unsure about what exact patch we'll be playing on. There's no chance of the Genji changes being in there, I guess, yet. So, but yeah, it's all going to be very, very interesting to see what the teams do with this and if it will bring about any changes. But I would personally bet on, like I said, the double shield with Ash May really leading the charge for the DPS heroes. I don't know about Zen. Zen kind of surprised me in the May Melee there a little bit. His resurgence. So it'll be curious to see what the support lines do. But I guess Baptiste usually sees a tick when you go into the double shield comps and things like that. So maybe expect more of him. But.
All right. Well, should be interesting. Yeah, I guess that you get the. So I think the benefit of 2-week hero pools in general is you get the initial like discovery phase of like, okay, well, the teams are like, some teams may come to different conclusions. Like we saw with Florida, they kind of innovated something different, and that was really cool. The downside is like, does that innovation and like that rock, paper, scissors, that back and forth extend to the following week of like, okay, well, are we going to play the thing that beats that, the thing that was actually good, or are we just going to everyone's all going to play it? And it's like the first week is cool and the second week is just like, who can do it better? Maybe that's interesting. Maybe it's not. I don't know. And the downside is like, I mean, if you think about it, in like, let's just say next year or in 2 years or whatever, like, yes, there's going to be new heroes added and whatnot, and maybe things change drastically, but like, if we get a similar hero pool, maybe that first week is actually not that exciting because it's like, okay, we know what's going to happen here. It's not going to be anything interesting. And then we get 2 weeks of this and it's not interesting.
Yeah, and there's been so many changes too. Like, I guess it's easy to see why this was derived from, what we saw in the Melee, but the Melee really did have such variety.
Yeah.
That it almost feels like these selections are a little bit independent of what was probably the best overall composition. But again, the team that surprised and did so well in Florida ran something else. And so maybe if other teams were on that plan, it would have been very different, or I don't know. It's one of those things. I've looked at hero pools and thought, these aren't going to be great, and then all of a sudden, it turns out Ash is just actually good, and it's a fun week, and so I don't want to hang my hat on like the analysis of what it looks like going into it, but it does feel very easy and very likely for teams to just fall into the double shield meta, and it's what we've been in since playoffs last year and what hero pools were designed to get rid of. So it's hard to be optimistic when looking at this one, but we've got to keep an open mind and let the teams figure it out, because they've been with hero pools forced to adapt and play a lot more different comps. And I think they're now comfortable doing that in a way they weren't previously. And so maybe this gives them some license. And just characters like Echo and Sombra and Brig, especially Brig, the armor packs, I know, and nobody listening to this show right now understands the actual impact of putting an armor pack on a tracer and sending them loose into the back line, unless there's a couple coaches listening to this episode or something like that, right? So don't let anybody tell you, even me, that it's going to be stale or it's going to be anything, because there's a level of interactions that go on with the armor and Brig and Echo as a hero that we just don't fully understand her kit and what she punishes and what she keeps, what it keeps at bay and things like that. So who knows what's going to happen? It's a very different game than it was, when the double shield meta started. So we'll keep an open mind going into it. I'm talking myself more and more into it.
Well, we'll have to see, and this will certainly, of course, be a big turning point, and we'll see, the onset of 2-week hero pool. So we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on that. But let's move on and let's break it. Got a few matches here. We actually got some matches to talk about coming up this week. And we'll start off on Saturday with the London Spitfire going against the Shanghai Dragons. Death, who do you have?
This is as good as it gets in the Asia region versus the worst it gets in the Asian region. I'm taking Shanghai with a comfortable 3-0 stomp here.
Yeah.
I don't think too much suspense involved in this one.
Nope, I am in agreement there. Next up, we have NYXL versus Seoul Dynasty. I mean, everyone knows what I'm going with here. Easy 5-0.
I think you got the wrong. I think the 5-0 is coming up in the next one, but we'll get to that one in a moment. This one could be very, very close. Like we talked about what New York's going to do.
Unfortunately.
There's no reason why these two teams coming up against each other in any fight under any circumstances wouldn't be considered to be a very close matchup.
It's a historic matchup, even though the teams are very different than they once were.
I mean, it'll be very curious to see, like I said, what New York does with their two new options that they've brought in. Seoul obviously on the up and up following the May Melee, where they showed the ability to play a variety of compositions, not just the double shield that they'd been so comfortable with previously, but I do think they're going to get to play that double shield that they are so comfortable with, being an advantage as New York tries to incorporate some new pieces. I'm going Seoul 3-2. Because I think New York is going to get a little bit of a boost. Maybe I'm optimistic they'll get a boost from the new guys if they use them. And like I said, no reason to think it's not close, but Seoul should have a slight advantage here. So 3-2.
Wrong, but okay. Next up, we'll go Paris Eternal versus Boston Uprising. Death. Is Boston
this is the other unlock.
Yeah.
Like, we are going to watch Sparkle just absolutely dunk on the worst team in Overwatch. Like, man, it's maybe second worst. I don't know. But there is some suspense here, right? Because Boston did show some ability to play coordinatedly as a 6-man unit and log into the game together and actually play a match, which is big news from Boston at this stage in the game. I'm curious if that was the pool, or they just what exactly allowed them to play at a bare bones adequate level. Will that continue? I don't think it'll matter. I think Paris should be a couple tiers above this squad, even with their level up from previous. But Paris has been pretty shaky. But yeah, I just want Eggsy to show up like completely unannounced, unhyped, stand in there next to a Sparkle on the lineups and just go nuts. I want to see this team in full force, and then I want to see something happen where if they have to play against Houston, they're not able to field that full force because that's terrifying. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very curious to see what kind of impact Sparkle's going to have on the game with the meta the way it is, right? We've seen it so much on Doomfist in Tier 2 and things like that, and probably not going to be more than a comfort pocket pick or like a late swap if things aren't going great, I would think at the moment. I'd love to see him on Echo, but we're not going to get to. So what is he going to play? How is it all going to work? But either way, at the end of the day, he was so hyped up. And all the other signings that Paris makes just seem to work out. You have to assume the one that was super hyped up is going to work too, right? I gotta see it. Let's get to the point where the huge stopping point with the Paris Eternal is Ben Best and for their front line, and let's get them there and see how good they are, because it could be terrifying.
Yeah, definitely could. All right. We've got
5-0 easiest 5-0 of the actual week that'll actually happen.
I'll take second easiest 5-0. Next up, we've got Florida Mayhem versus the Dallas Fuel. Death, are you in? Have you bought into the Florida hype, or is it merely hype?
Well, listen, I mean, I've bought in on what's actually happened, and that's that the Florida Mayhem have proven adequacy. They've proven to be what a mid-tier team has been all year, and that's a team that has the ability to beat anybody at any given time, has the ability to play up and perform really well against quality opponents, and is able to finish them off and beat them. That's a big step of progress for the Florida Mayhem. It's ludicrous to turn them into a top 3 team in your anybody who's done that, shame on you. You're not you're just way overboard.
Shame.
See how I stopped there and let the drop?
I did.
That was good. I like that. But yeah, it's just crazy to go too, like, you just can't go too crazy on Florida. The hypes, I wanted them to be everything everybody else wants them to be. I'm in, right? Especially in this matchup. I have no love for Dallas. And I would love to see Florida really turn it around, but they're not there yet. And I worry that the meta change Chris back onto maybe Lucio more or Baptiste just isn't quite the same. And I don't see any reason why Dallas can't use their DPS to pop off, right? Like Widowmaker is still going to be able to be gone to for Decay, for him to just carry. And I think without the armor pack Tracer combo, right? Maybe, I don't know. Yaki's just like where Decay was for me 3 weeks or a month ago, right? Like proven can absolutely be a beast and carry on the Tracer in the league, but just you got to show me another hero where you can have a similar kind of impact and just solo carry and pop off. Not anything I've seen quite yet, but certainly not out of the realm of possibility. There's a lot of words to say 3-2 Dallas here, but it's, I think, that close that it's, I mean, these teams are right neck and neck in my mind, in my power rankings. So with the uncertainty of a new meta, a new hero pool, I'll go 3-2, but I'll call it Dallas.
See, I want to go 3-2 Florida, but if you're watching the video, I'm scrambling.
I was wondering what you were
for the
doing.
Coin. I don't know where it is, so I guess I have to agree with everything that Death puts out.
The big one that
I don't want to hurt. I mean, I don't want to hurt your thumb, but if you, I'm definitely picking Florida 3-2 here.
All right. We'll see. So it's heads for Dallas, and then tails never fails for the Florida Mayhem, because my heart's with Florida, so I'll go never fails there. Oh,
God, I can hear that. That
it's heads.
Oh, so, man,
Coin's going for Dallas.
I heard the pain in the thumb there. I could feel that one. That was brutal.
I have a coin.
Okay. Next up, we've got Atlanta Reign versus the Los Angeles Gladiators. Death, what do you got?
I like Atlanta more when I look at the rosters until I look at how they're actually using them. And I will never be able to wrap my head around this Baby Bay over Erster business.
Yeah.
It's lunacy. It doesn't make any sense. The Gladiators are a team that I think are making positive steps and getting better as the season goes on. It's a little slow. But Atlanta's just up and down and all over the map, and it could absolutely go either way. If you like Atlanta in this one, I totally get it. I just feel slightly more confident with the Gladiators. I'm going to take them 3-2.
No Erster, no win. I'll agree there. All right, we've got 3 more matches on Sunday, starting off with Philadelphia Fusion versus the Houston Outlaws. Death, are your boys in green able to take this one down?
Nope.
All right, well,
that's the extent of my.
Yeah.
It's just not the team to be picking Houston against here, right? Like Philly is looking really, really strong. Yep. There's no reason to think like Sato can't be on the Reinhardt. Houston's got hydration they're using on main tank now instead of Muma, which is, I think, working out okay, but it's not ideal.
Right.
To be a DPS into the main tank role. to stand up against a team that's lost all of twice. Not much, at least in the league so far. I want to say they're still at the top of the standings. Yes, they are 13-1 as their record. So yeah, it's not a likely victory here for Houston. You just can't really realistically.
Can't
possible. Houston beaten San Francisco. They lays up and takes down teams they shouldn't beat, but you'd have to be pretty far behind, I think, and pick them to call that shot now.
Would definitely be a crazy one to pick, but if you're feeling it, you can pick it. But
3-1 because Dante's a nut, though. Dante is way underrated, probably the best Western DPS player in Overwatch League, and gives them a very serious shot.
Yep. All right, we've got a rematch from the Melee Vancouver Titans versus the Toronto Defiant. Can our boys take it down again, Death?
I think they're still considered the favorites here. If Surefour plays, I think it's like 3-1, 3-0 kind of a situation with the latency issues of Vancouver, though they are getting better and gelling as a team a little bit. But Toronto should have the clear advantage here. I'll take them 3-2. I'll take you with much more confidence against this terrible opponent, Toronto, if you can just get your star player onto the maps and into the lobby. That would be great.
Yeah, when Surefour's not in, like, all bets are off. I still think I agree we're favored here with Toronto, but it's closer than I want it to be. Okay.
The reason we're not flipping the coin is because it hurts physically to flip it.
It also hurts physically to pick against Toronto, but
emotionally it hurts.
All right, last match of the week, we've got LA Valiant versus Washington Justice. What do you got, Duh?
Washington hasn't earned the right to be being predicted unless it's against Boston or one of the other bottom table teams. The Valiant, I'm not as high as a lot of other people are. I think they benefited from I say this without having it in front of me, and maybe it's just simply not accurate, but the Melee to me was a product of, I've got it in front of me now. Let's actually look at who their opponents were. They beat the Paris Eternal, who've been kind of disappointing to me, and then got bodied by the Shock. So you beat Soon and Nico DPS combo with Ben Best on main tank. I'm not, making any parades for you or anything like that for that result. I think the Valiant have a lot to prove. They are, however, baseline adequate mid-table kind of a team, something Washington's not been able to show. So the Valiant here 3-1.
Can't pick Washington yet. They need to earn that spot. But that's going to be
They have no head coach. They have no general manager. They have brand new off tank. Like, there's just so many things going on in Washington. None of them are conducive to an upset victory.
Right. Could be wild card, but again, that's not something that you're picking. You're not randomly picking that. Unless you're a madman, which maybe you are. Go. all more power to you. I don't think you're going to be winning that bet in the long run, though. Okay, that is it for the show. Death, anything else that we wanted to cover before we go here?
That's it for me.
All right. Well, special thanks again to Bungee Bamboo, our executive producer level at Patreon. Our executive producer level patron again over at patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. Make sure you check that out, as well as discord.me/High Noon Podcast, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast, twitter.com, all, you get the gist of it. We're High Noon Podcast everywhere. Make sure you are following, liking, subscribing, all those things, leaving reviews everywhere that you can. It really does help us out as well. And again, Discord is going to be the best place to get in touch with us, get in touch with the community, and learn more and just talk about what's going on in the league. But that is going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for watching. For Deathblow, I am Blevins. And remember, guys, it's High Noon.
And he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now guides my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Toronto, sign Sideshow, you cowards. Sign and play Sideshow, you cowards.